Hi there, Joshua here. So, what in the world is this? Well, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to do a little bit of building in public. So, if you can see kind of the browser page I'm on now, I've got a nice article, actually a nice ebook written up by my buddy Kevin Chung, who's one of the original founders of Toasty, and he's done this really good write up on this concept that's out there in the world of this idea of building in public. Basically, the idea of showing a little bit behind the scenes of how you're working. And I thought this would be kind of fun to do. Now, this is going to be much more rambling, hypothetically, than I usually am. Hopefully not this rambling usually. But in this case, I actually wanted to show how we went about redoing the brochure, the overview, the prospectus for our organization in 2021. So maybe this will be interesting. If not, feel free to just download the overview. But if you're kind of curious what our thought process was, as well as what are some of the tools and techniques that went into it, yeah, give a listen. So without further ado, let's actually take a look at the thing itself. So I'll pop it up here on screen and it's going to hang out. Let's make it big screen. It's going to be, whoa, that's super huge. We're going to go a little bit smaller than that actually, but there we are. It's up on the screen now. So basically I want to talk a little bit about what the philosophy is behind this. It's tempting just to kind of play it safe and to just put out a menu for who you are, just like, here's the programs we offer, please order off the menu. And definitely an overview is designed to provide that to some extent, but I think it has the power to be something much more than that. One of my favorite facilitators, Daniel Stillman, said that conversations are made of people. And I think that a lot of times in designing our collateral, in designing the materials, the websites we make, we sometimes forget to bring the people into it. It becomes almost like a clinical safe exercise rather than the start of a conversation. So the goal of any of our materials, from our website to our overviews to our programs themselves, is to really not only get people engaged, but to also to some extent act as a filtering device. We want to start conversations, but we also recognize that not every facilitation firm is for everyone. It's not always a right fit. Not every coach is right for every coachee. You got to find the right fit. So we want the materials that we're creating to really sound like the start of a conversation that we would normally naturally have face to face, to be an extension of that. And at the same time, not surprise people when they meet up with us. It's not oh, that's not what I thought you were going to deliver, but that it actually acts as a beacon to those who are interested in starting that kind of fire, and a slight positive, friendly warning sign for those looking for safer conversations potentially. So yeah, let me kind of look on into this. Let's actually first look at like how we've evolved in this. So if I zoom on back, by the way, so this is going to be fun, memory lane trip going on here. This is where we started back in 2015. Yoink. You wonder if I like the color blue. So we were originally called 1221 Consulting, which is a numerical palindrome. I'm not going to go into all the details there. It was a potentially slightly pretentious title that meant a lot to me. It was memorable, but it didn't necessarily stick in the minds of people. So we changed to Nomium a couple of years back, which is the element. I'm not cutting that out. That's what's rambling. It's the element of knowledge. It's the idea of knowledge and kind of, plutonium or something on the periodic table. It's not a real element, but we just kind of like the name of it. Definitely speaking with the royal we here. I do have a team of facilitators and we do dialogue about this. But ultimately, when it comes to like bad ideas for naming, I can only lay that at my own feet, for better or for worse. But yeah, so we started here. And it was a bit more traditional to begin with. Did have some interesting kind of fonts, but it was very much more of a menu approach. I did love this imagery that we had. We bought an image library here, and I'll talk about image libraries in just a moment. But it was all right. It was good. It was a lot of information, just a lot of program, but it was definitely driven by the program. Now, towards the end, we got a little bit more into the philosophy, really going into, what we are, what's different, but it was definitely coming a bit more from the academic side in terms of that. Oh yeah, fun fact about this one, this was actually my passport photo. because it was the only good photo I had at the time when I was putting this together at the last minute. And I photoshopped on the suit. The suit is not actually what I was wearing at the time. And that is only amusing to me. So from there, once we were over and becoming Nomium, our first approach back in like 2018, 2019 was one of these. And it's not bad, but it is definitely the kitchen sink approach. It is a insane 78 pages long. Now note, our current overview is 10 pages. 78 pages. So basically, we put in like the details of every single program down to the nitty gritty. No one wants to wade through that. It's much better to start the conversation to get them curious and hungry for more, rather than to try to just completely overwhelm them with everything you've done. This is where the Nomium branding began to come in. It was a little bit more tame then, in the sense of we got our blue and yellows, got our nice Nomium logo. By the way, that logo, that is a slightly revised version of the international. So these like international nautical flags. If you've ever gone through our overview, it's the international nautical flags. And each one of these has a meaning. So that blue and yellow is actually for the letter K, hence Nomium. But also if it's hung on a ship, it means I want to communicate with you. So it's sending a message there. And I really like that. Also, my father was in the Navy. Now, he was a dentist in the Navy. So although he was a captain, it was more of teeth rather than tides. And super, super awesome human being, still is. And I just really wanted to bring that into it as well. So sort of that little family touch and element as well. Anyways, but then really the more recent era of where we have been, hopefully I'm saying era and not error, of where we've been, was this sort of branding here. This was the last year, 2020. You can see we updated it from 2019 to 2020 with a little bit on the remote ready stuff as everybody switched to virtual. But this was where we really started to bring that philosophy of being conversation driven first, of trying to positively poke the hornet's nest in a very friendly way from the very beginning. Not playing it safe. Like literally from the first sentence, it says, hello, we're Nomium. We're definitely not for everyone. But for those who want to change the learning landscape, we're here to start fires and spark conversations. So it's trying to begin that at the beginning. And it goes into the philosophy there. The only thing I want to share on this that's kind of interesting is I love the idea of Easter eggs. So for the longest time, and I don't think any client noticed this ever, Robert Kinzel, my awesome colleague and good friend, for the longest time, if you clicked on his face in the PDF, it actually linked, let me pull it on up here, it linked to an image on our website of him in full Guns N' Roses regalia. That image is still up on the website if you really typed in the URL. And I need to find a place to relink it in the most recent brochure. So I just like the idea of a playful Easter egg stuck in there. We have those throughout our website and throughout pretty much everything we do. Nothing offensive or crazy or anything, but it's just fun to bring little touches of humanity into that. I just always liked back in the day when like video games had hidden little Easter eggs or books had hidden messages in them. So I just thought this would be kind of fun. Plus now I've got an excuse to have Bob up on screen with his Guns N' Roses for a while. He actually went to the concert, he and his wife did, when they came to Hong Kong. And that's definitely important enough for me to use time in this video for. So where do we get this imagery? I love consistency in imagery. So we have a tendency, we'll use things like Shutterstock or Graphic River and a couple of other things, and I'll cite them all down under the video. But what we're looking for is, I really love illustration. I don't like stock photography. Now that might just be my personal opinion. I really don't like stock photography. For me, it just has become too cliche. And it's not that we haven't gotten to that point with illustration, but for some reason, there's this term semiotic weight, this idea that objects and things have a weight about them, and somehow in the digital we lose a lot of that. You know, that analog feel of clicking on a button off and on. And illustration doesn't completely bring that back in, but for me it really brings more of that authenticity. So what we're looking for always is illustrators who have a voice, they've got a feel, they don't just look totally generic. And also are affordable. So if you'll notice over here, the dollar symbols over there, $4 for this image. We buy a lot of images. This is by actually, I believe, a Russian illustrator. And we bought a lot of their images for the previous version of Nomium, which has been Nomium for the last couple of years. Let me just like pull one up here. So I'm just going to zoom on in. La, 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 la. So we can just zoom on in there and you can sort of see that's homeschooling. We did not buy that image, not doing a lot of stuff on homeschooling. But if you went to the Nomium website or Nomium materials anytime in the last couple of years, you would have seen this sort of themed imagery. We usually buy a couple of them because the license, they're designed to be used in a single end product. So if we're using it both in a brochure and a website, we're pretty cautious about that. We don't need the giant commercial wide license where you're having it in millions of things. But for that we do it. So what changed? And just one little thing. People ask about font pairs. If you're looking at font pairs, I'll include some of the links below for that. One of my favorite ones is literally fontpair.co, and it just has really nice little font pairings, also cheap, free. So you're not spending billions on font, but just clean, nice font, so you're not going all over the place in your design. Although, of course, again, if you want, just hire a designer. There are many awesome designers, but I just have slight obsessiveness about making things look the way I want them to look, which my designer friends always look and go, yeah, that's close. It's not quite, but I'm like, but damn it, it's close enough for me. So when we went to our newest version, we once again got a new designer or a new collective art group. This time we used Good Studio for almost all the images. Fun fact, the image on the cover is actually by a different artist, but it looks similar enough-ish. I just liked it so much. But let me just go on in here. So that would be like from stock photography. Like if you've downloaded Inside Fox, the sales book that we just released with David Lambert, you'll see a lot of imagery. This is from actually an artist in Thailand. Why is it doing that? And you can see the different images, some of which you'll probably see in the book, which we've bought for use there. But in this case, we were using the imagery from Good Studio for the website as well as for the materials. And the reason for that, and I'm going to pronounce this horribly wrong, although my good friend Paul will correct me on it. This idea of hygge, this Danish concept of warmth and gathering around a place, our old imagery just didn't seem to me to fit where we wanted to go in terms of really creating a sense of warmth. It was I quite liked it. I think the previous illustrator was unique, interesting, beautiful, but as people were spending so much time at home, and everyone was doing so much stuff virtually, I really wanted the imagery that we used to be an extension of the warmth we were trying to create in the workshops and the coaching and all the engagements themselves. So it does start off again with a bit about who we are, all that kind of stuff, and some of the lessons learned from 2020. But it's really getting this idea here of, where do we want to go next? And in this case, it's much more focused on this idea of the year of conversations. And has one of my favorite words, nodcrafty. It's an 18th century adjective that describes the tendency of people to nod pretending to listen, and that being just so much of a challenge in our virtual spaces. So how do we actually get beyond that? We do have a little bit of the menu just to make it clean and clear, but we were trying to do a little bit deeper dive into it and map out each program to this idea of what areas of the conversation map it's covering. How does it actually respond to this idea of how we can have more positive conversations that move away from blocking and telling, all the way up through understanding, validating, storytelling, persuading, problem solving, but basically looking at how every professional interaction we're having somehow maps to different aspects of that map that allow us to change our conversations, our messaging, and ultimately our organization. We try to give a feel for what the actual sessions feel like and a bit of the pedagogy behind it. As well as really focusing on this idea of how can we help? How can we start better conversations? Talking a little bit about our Radically Remote book that we put out, which, it's a free download. And that was this idea of, in our community of trainers and facilitators, last year, 2019, 10% of sessions were done virtually, according to ATD, big study they did. And obviously last year and this year, it's much higher. So how could we actually help with that? And this is one of the initiatives we did towards that. More client-facing, recently just released Insight Fox, which was in partnership with the awesome David Lambert, who wrote Smarter Selling, one of the co-authors of that. And it was this idea of how can we help clients with these virtual conversations where they're trying to reach their own clients. We continued, of course, our Giving Speech initiative. If you're a nonprofit or NGO, please do reach out. We do free training for that. And also wanted to really emphasize our deeper joining of Climate Neutral, and just this idea of how can we give back to our community? How can we actually positively connect? And how do we bring that into our sessions? It's really a balance between warmth and going too much into the warmth and becoming cheesy from my perspective. And also indicating that deep research that's going on underneath everything as well. So we actually do a look behind the scenes, this idea of how do we actually run our sessions? It's not just, hey, we suddenly moved to virtual, but we've actually been doing this for years. Actually, this little setup here is where I'm sitting at right now. So we give a little peek behind the scenes, show a little bit in terms of the tools that we respect and use. But ultimately, it's just a quick little introduction to, what our sessions feel like and trying to be an extension of that. What not only we can do for clients, but who we are and what we believe in and how we really fundamentally work and how that actually makes us different. Not different in a better than way, but just this is the niche into which we have chosen to step. And we'd love to have a chance to have people join us there. It's really a gut feeling, ultimately, how you end up writing. You put a bunch of stuff out there. These brochures were these overviews were like 3 times as long, and then just judiciously cutting down left and right. But it's always this question of how can we start a conversation with what we've given people. So I think, no, that's a Wikipedia article. I think that's about what I was going to show. Let me just zooming on in here. Was there anything else? Probably not. Now I'm just rambling. You can probably turn this off. But yeah, so I'm going to do some more of these. Maybe it's interesting, maybe not. Coming in at 15 minutes. Wow, that is quite rambling, much less organized than normal. But hopefully it's an interesting little peek behind the curtain. I will have a link below which shows all the different places we've gotten our materials from in terms of putting things together, color choices, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. And if you got any questions, feel free to reach out. And of course, download away with the overview and feel free to send it out to many, many people. See y'all later, and hope you have a good start to 2021. And this is where I awkwardly reach over and type the stop button. This is Loom that I'm using now, which is a wonderful program, but also ever so slightly glitchy sometimes. So yeah.